I do see in the market high expectations to actions in diversity and inclusion. I do see expansion of efforts and resources being in place, resources meaning positions, dollars, and also more openness to discuss those topics and be more honest on those difficult conversations, which is great. So I think it's really pushing it now. It's the perfect storm. So that is why we thought it would be valuable to put a spotlight on this topic. Today, together, we will try to challenge our underlying assumptions around this topic and to move ourselves forward. So we've decided to put our minds together to drive new ways of thinking, new solutions that will help us bridge all those gaps. So with me today are my great panel companions, and I will introduce them. So please meet with drums, my dear friend and colleague, Michal Grachstein. Michal is the founder and the CEO of Starlinks and a data-driven organization psychologist. So Michal, what connects you to this topic? Why are you here? I mean, what did you have in mind coming to this presumption topic of daily practice? I can tell you that as a VP HR, I can't even make a one-day practice during the Pride Day that I try to push. So daily, I mean, seriously, Michal?
Seriously, but we'll talk about the daily later. But where do I connect to it, or what brought me to be interested in this topic? Well, it's on one end, it's obvious. I'm born in Israel, and live in Israel. So we have our share of multicultural and need for inclusion within our diverse environment. I grew up in a multicultural environment. My mom came from Iraq. My dad with Polish roots. I ate kube and gefilte fish. If you don't know what either of them, you're missing out. And when I became a mom, suddenly trying to send my own child into school, I found myself thinking about the diversity within the school that he will go to. So I thought about myself and my school experience, and although my parents were multicultural, the neighborhood and the environment was not. So now thinking about my kid and thinking about future world and future skills and how I see what my kid will need when he grow up, it was apparent to me that he needs to be able to communicate with diverse others, that he needs to be able to expand his mind and think in different ways. And I looked for a school that will provide that. So for me, inclusion as a daily practice would mean, for example, to think about the school, which is something daily that is occurring. My kid goes to school every day. How does this environment will look? And what can I do as a parent to shape the future of inclusion in a few more years, even if not today?
Perfect. Thank you. So our second panelist is Smadar Tadmor. Smadar is the co-founder and the CEO of Connection HR, organizational consultant, executive coach, specializing in leadership development and complex world. So Smadar, please introduce yourself and do share with us what motivates you to talk on this topic today.
So, good evening, everyone. I'm very excited to see so many faces that are sharing this passion of ours, dealing with diversity and inclusion. So, for me, it actually started about 20 years ago when I was a VP of HR in a multicultural global company. I was very young, I was a woman, and obviously I wasn't part of the gang at all. So I had to pave my way up to be part of this executive team. And what's interesting in that company was that the main value, or the core value of the company was about coexistence. So working on that, connecting people from so many different cultures, religions, places around the world, I realized that being a human being is the only thing that connects everyone. So what motivates me is the deep understanding is that we should look at every individual as a whole, as a something that is really full of so much magic, and being able to bring some humanity into management, into the workplace. So that's for me.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing. By the way, when you shared of being the only executive female, I just remembered that in the McKinsey report, they named it the term that I didn't know before. You were an only. You know the term? You were an only.
An only.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and our last one, please welcome with great empathy, Yotvat Palter Daitzan. Probably I don't pronounce it well. So Yotvat is the co-founder and the CEO at Other Reality. It's a VR, virtual reality, enhanced emotional training platform, providing groundbreaking solutions to refine organizational interfaces by boosting empathy.
Right.
So Yotvat, I know you're also known as Yoto. So from now we are calling you Yoto. What brings you here, Yoto? What drives you when you think about inclusion?
Well, I'm a heart-driven person. I'm here because of my heart. My heart brought me here, but I do let the brain follow. Some time ago, several years ago, when we relocated to the United States, we used to live in California for several years, and a friend of mine, an Israeli friend of mine, who met some of my friends there, once said, there were many people in the group, and some of them came from different places, and she said, Yoto has very large holes in her colander. He was talking about my screening process with people. And I looked at her and I said, you know what? It's not the size of the holes, it's the shape. I just happen to have different shapes of the holes in my colander. And this is something that has been a part of my life forever. And when I am meeting people or at work, and they do not see the reason, they do not see the cause, the actual cause for why inclusion is such an important part of our lives. For me, it's something that it's natural, and I do not understand why they cannot see with me eye to eye. So it's on me to explain, to put the business plan behind it and make them reason. It's not only the right thing for you, it's not just it's the right thing to do, but it's the right thing for your business. It's the right thing, and it's worth it. It's worth a while, and I can show you how to do it and how to do it well. And we have the tools. When I say we, I mean we, everyone here on the panel. We'll discuss it later, but we also have the tools to make it happen. So this is why I'm here. I'm here with my heart, and I let my brain follow.
Beautiful. Thank you. So after doing such a great job in gathering experts with the most teeth-breaking names for non-Israelis, Yotvat, Smadar, Michal, and Adas, really. So let's practice some more inclusiveness, and let's try to play a Zoom version of Have You Ever? It will go like that, okay? Be with me. Elik will be blacken all the cameras, your profile picture, we will only see your name, okay? And then I will ask you to turn on your camera only if it's the answer is yes, it's true for you, okay? We will try it one time and then you'll see how it goes. We will do it several times, actually 4. So be focused and be ready, and let's try it. Elik, let's shut the cameras, and okay, let's
Bear with us. It will happen.
For some reason, it doesn't work. So we'll ask everybody to shut their own videos. So everybody, can you shut on your cameras for a second and reopen it when we ask?
Okay, so we can't do it for you. So we'll need your extra cooperation on that. Okay, so if it's all black now, so I'm going, perfect, thank you. So I see only myself now. Okay, so I'm asking a question. Who just woke up and didn't have breakfast yet? Turn on your camera if it's a yes, if it's a true for you. Let's see all our friends. Okay, who just woke up? Haven't had a breakfast even. Not many. Okay. Okay, so now turn it back. Now, yeah, I see. Amazing. Now, who is tired after a whole day of working and just wants to get some rest? Okay, perfect. So after practicing some time zone inclusiveness, let's move to the more challenging two questions. Okay, thank you for being so active. You're great. Who started? Okay, so blacken all the screens now. Okay, perfect. I see only myself. Great. Listen, who started a new hobby in the last 9 months? For example, self-raising vegetables, 5 a.m. running club, not me, playing an instrument, anything new, baking, I don't know, turn on your cameras. I see much more cameras, I think, right? Okay, perfect. Now, the last one and the most important one. Okay, are you ready? One last time to blacken it. Okay. So the question would be, not all of you just shut. Okay, now I see all answer. Thank you. So listen carefully. Turn on your camera if you ever been or felt excluded. If you ever been or felt excluded. Okay, yeah. I thought that would be the the view. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your authenticity and courage, actually. Thank you for sharing. Okay. And now, after all, having you such a beautifully active participant, and we feel we know you a bit better, so let's move to our panel, okay? So this is the heart of the panel, and we have a few questions. And so the first question would be, what do we really mean when we talk about inclusion as a daily practice? What do we really mean as a daily practice? So Michal, I will refer this to you to open with. Thank you.
Thank you, Adas. We expected the cameras to open up, but I have to say that actually seeing it happen, like we talked about it when we prepared this session, but actually seeing it, at least for me, was very intense right now. And I feel that I actually need a minute after that. But I think that is exactly why we created this meeting, and why when we talk about it, we all know what we talk about. We all knew what we talked about, although no one defined what exclusion means. We simply feel it. And before I explain in words what do I mean by, like, what do we think about in daily inclusion, I actually want to share with you and get to know the Schilling model of segregation. So I don't know if many of you know it or not. But the Schilling model of segregation in 1971 examined the question, what would happen if we wanted to live in a neighborhood where we are not intended to be racist or discriminative. We just don't want to be the absolute minority. We want our neighborhood to have at least 30 people, that 30% of the community will be similar to me. So I won't feel that I'm a big minority, right? And then they took the Schilling model and they took it to Los Angeles and kind of examined in 4 populations. So Los Angeles, very, very diverse. And they checked what would people prefer. And they actually saw that the Schilling model was not very far. And most people, regardless of their background, ethnic background, prefer not to be the minority. Now, this is not about being racist. This is about natural tendencies of people that we want to be around. We don't want to be seen or feel like we are too much of a minority. So let's say 30%, okay? I just want about 30% of my neighborhood to kind of be like me. How does it look? So we actually, using the Schilling model, we can see it. So here we have the reds and the blues. They're about 50% and they're 50-50. There are empty 10% boxes, so room to move. And we want just 30% for people to be content, whether they're red or whether they're blue. They need to have 30% of their immediate neighbor be like them. So if people start to move based on that tendency, well, we see that in 10 rounds of people moving, we already seeing the neighborhoods starting to form that are homogeneous. If we take it just a bit more to 40% that we saw that many people said there, and we restart and start, we can see that after 15 rounds, the segregation actually becomes even more pronounced. So basically what we see is that, so for me, it's not daily, it's not about the time that it's every day, but it's rather in our daily lives, daily decisions that we make about where we live or where we send our kids to school or how we behave in a meeting, or our daily behaviors that seems to be individual and independent of what's happening actually make inclusion emerge. And in companies, what we mainly focus on still is the top-down strategy or initiatives that we initiate communities, we initiate groups of resources. But what we neglect, and what I hope that we bring in today here in this panel, is an agent-based approach for change. So it's looking at those seemingly unrelated individual behaviors that taken together emerge into a social structure that is either inclusive or exclusive. So really, for me, daily is how do we move people, motivate them to act in ways, in daily decisions, in their daily decisions, move them just a little bit or just even 1% at a time, just small movements, so we can
Beautiful.
live in an inclusive society.
Thank you, Michal. I love the social structure and the inclusive, to be wired, right, socially. It's even deeper than daily. So, Smadar, we are moving to you. Same question. What do we really mean when we talk about daily practice in inclusion? Inclusion as a daily practice.
So, first of all, I'm going to connect to what you've said, Michal, just now. And for me, is the basic assumption, the basic human assumption that one size doesn't fit all. And it's all leans in the basic belief of us as human beings that each and every one is a unique whole. So it's the understanding that by nature, everyone has his own or her special way of living or performing or interacting. And the difference between us is a great resource. So as a daily practice, we should accept that other can and should be different than us. To look at the individual through the basic characteristics, their strengths, their motivations, their beliefs, and then understand that they're all common to all human beings. It's it needs a lot of openness, and it takes a lot of understanding that this is an growth engine, and it's not a disruption, and somebody tends to think. So when we look at the organization as a living entity, as a complex system, it's very important for me to understand or to see that every voice is important. Every voice should be heard. And the need to be heard is not just from the side of the person, of the human being, is also from the organizational aspect. It creates richer, it creates more innovative, it creates more opportunity to organization to grow with so many different points of view and angles that enables the organization to deal with the complexity, to deal with the uncertainty. So managing people insightfully based on their unique personal strengths and characteristics should avoid any bias and exclusion.
Thank you, Smadar. By the way, before we move to the next question, just a note, you can shoot us, in the chat questions. We will capture them, we will answer them during the panel. So don't be shy. We are here exactly for that, actually. We really, really want your voice, questions, remarks, everything, feedback. Okay, perfect. So the next question is to Yoto. Are you with me, Yoto? So what skills and capabilities do we need in order to develop in our times for driving inclusion future?
Okay, one of the skills that we need, not only for driving inclusion, but we need today, is being able to be agile, and everyone is talking about it, especially now with all that is happening around the world. But the basic skill that I would like to discuss today is empathy. Being able to show empathy, being able to use empathy on a daily basis is something that is it's essential, not only at the workplace, in every aspect of our lives, but especially we're talking about the workplace here. So especially in the workplace, because this is the place that we spend most of the hours of the day on, right? We're most of the time we're at work, and we are connecting with people. And if we are not able to show empathy to the variety of people that are with us there, and this is something that is not only allows us to connect on a personal basis, but also all the infrastructure at the workplace, all the places that we have to move forward. It all everything is influenced by the empathy. And Eric, if you could add the slide for a second. Okay.
This one?
Yes, please. Thank you. When we were talking about the empathy effect, the ability to connect with others, and the way that we are using empathy in the workplace, that this is the key for being inclusive in the workplace, but not only, as I said, not only at the workplace. There are several studies that are showing how empathy is essential at the healthcare system, at the educational system, in the academy, a lot of other places. I will discuss it more later when we discuss other questions. But for me, being able to show empathy and to foster empathy is the most essential skill that is needed now these days.
Thank you. So I want to ask something, because also there's exactly that question that I was about to ask you from Shayna in the chat, and either of you can take it.
Okay.
Why is it so hard to empathize with people that are not like us. Because like Shana is saying, I mean, let's get rid of the habit of hiring like me person, right? I mean, I can empathize with someone my age, you know, and same socioeconomic, right? And same, I don't know, kids' age, but it would be very hard to empathize with someone that is not like me. And we are hiring people that are like us. We empathize with people that are like us. We even have those referral programs, right? So why is it so hard? I mean, many people would say, great, this is the future capability, and it's essential to a time like that to really enhance inclusiveness, which is harder than diversity, right? But why is it so hard to, I mean, it sounds very easy.
Well, it's easy and we're born with it, but we're not always trained to use this muscle. And this is something that with time, a lot of times we tend to put aside in order to defend ourselves and in order to be able to separate ourselves from others, especially as we grow up. But this is something that if you train, and this is what we do the empathy training journey. And if you are training yourself to being empathic to others, then you could do this on a daily basis, and you don't have to make the effort of trying to be empathic. The difference between empathy and sympathy is that when you are being empathic to someone else, you're actually seeing the situation through his eyes and hearing through his or her ears. And the phrase is to walk a mile in someone else's shoes, okay? And this is something that if you are not experiencing the same experience that that person is going through, it's very hard to imagine. You can be sympathetic, but that would keep you distance. That would just take you apart. Being sympathetic drives you. And if you're able to show empathy, this is the thing that connects you.
There's also important to understand our biological roots, right? So as humans and our biological roots, we tend to go for homophily. So I started with a story about my son. An interesting thing that happened, so he started at the age of 3. And it was a Jewish Arab kindergarten. And what we saw is that the kids immediately separated and each group played with the. Now, it was very fascinating because as parents, we wanted to raise for something else. We wanted to raise for connectivity. And suddenly what we saw that emerged were these groups. Now, I think that it depends on also, and what we need to do, and I think that that's our challenge of the 21st century, is to expand the natural boundaries by which we think about inclusive. So Alon talked about it a little bit in the chat I saw. How do we bound, right? So I can bound by Jewish Arab, I can bound women, men, I can bound different opinions, I can bound how there are so many circles and each one of us contains so many circles. So the point is really not to fight the homophily tendency, but rather to redefine what are our similarities and use this bias that we build trust when we feel similar to someone and work on finding those similarities, work on getting that initial path on which things can move.
So what we see actually is a prejudice that we all, that is part of our society. We were raised and born, as Michal said, and this is the first tendency of us, to categorize people under a certain category. And as you said, Michal, it's so true. We need to work on that. And going back to the building blocks of our personality, of being human being, what are the things that are the traits that are common to all human beings, no matter where they were born, how they look, what their tendency, what their religious beliefs or other beliefs. The ground base of being a human being and being able to hold to that is, I think, one of the most important capabilities or skills that we need to develop. Along with the empathy, which is so important, we should have be able to be more flexible, more open-minded, and be able to personalize everything to get really the understanding of who is the person that stands among us, before us, with us, and how to be able to communicate in each and every one in a little bit of a different language, to be open to the differences and see them not as an obstacles, but otherwise more as a potential to create more opportunities together. And I think there are two important legs that I would say that are in that is love and courage. And love in terms of being caring, empathy, empathize, really tuned to the human being around us. And courage as in with being able or being willing to take risks in relationship, because relationship has to take some risk in them, and be able to stretch the lines and provide candor feedback to people in order to really create true and authentic relationship.
Right. Thank you. So I can say that I fully agree that we shouldn't be judgmental about, it's not good or bad to be biased, because we are all biased. Let's accept it. Let's embrace it. And let's not judge ourselves for worse. And once we understand it, we just need to know where to recognize and identify our points of, not being, empathic. I know that by the way, there are tons of great questions, remarks, notes, feedback. So thank you for that. Keep doing it. I can just, pick one of them that relates to my role as an HR. Maxime is asking, did already, organization shifted, embrace this empathy journey and empathy capability in their performance review, in their feedback reviews? So I haven't seen yet. I know that in surveys, in engagement surveys, there are questions already. Do you feel that the organization is inclusive or diverse? Do you feel the openness? Like Smadar said, that there are cultures or values that are being already defined as radical candor, and brutally honest, and all of that. But I haven't seen yet, the exact, term in the performance review. I think it will get more and more like that in the language of capabilities, and not only, the results, but also the way. So I hope it echoes that. Okay, so let's move to the next question, and we'll pick more from the chat because you have great questions, and we'll try to answer them. So how can we, Michal, this is for you. How can we measure diversity, inclusion, belongingness? I mean, how can we turn data into action? Right? It's the biggest question.
So there are two questions about how can we measure, and then how can we turn it into data? And the first one, if we touch first on the first one, how do we measure? So of course, every measurement starts, we would need to understand what is it that we're measuring? What is it what is it diversity? What is it inclusion? What is it belongingness? And the interesting part and important part about measurement that many miss is that once you define something, you put up a metric for it. Now the metric becomes the definition. Now what you measure becomes what inclusion is all about, what diversity is all about. You focus people's attention on where you measure. So beyond looking at the measurement for data and thinking about, okay, what data can I gather? It's also important for us to think about measurement as an intervention and understand that maybe we define something theoretically and we thought that we're measuring it, but then what we're really measuring is the definition of what, and not what we intended at the beginning. So now if we take a diversity, for example, is the easiest in the measurement world, right? Usually what we do is percentages of different groups that we can define, groups by age, group by ethnic diversity, group by gender, everything that we can use data, right, to put in a column and categorize people into those columns, then we start checking percentages. Now, some people don't have columns. We deal today with maybe definitions that don't always fix, or sometimes that we don't have the data, that it's maybe we don't have data on sexual orientation. But also beyond throwing groups, why do this matter? What do we try to achieve? So that's diversity, right? We usually look at percentages and is our company diverse enough? When we come
and also, I just want to interrupt for a second. We know that being having a diverse organization is more than just meeting the regulator quota and checking the boxes. You know, it's not just about the numbers, and it's not just about, because we don't have all the numbers.
Yeah, and that's just diversity. Now we're moving into the more interesting parts, right? Because that's a very kind of superficial even thinking about what diversity is, and it's just these percentages. There's something even uncomfortable a little bit in just doing that and saying, okay, that's it. Now when we go into inclusion, then some organizations see that, for example, we will look at salary or retention or promotion, and we start comparing between different groups, right? So the salaries of this group, and we're still within the same mindset of those groups, and we're looking now to see if being in a group has any effect on different outcomes like salary, promotion, etc. That's what we're usually today, that's what I know that mostly what is done. And then when we get to belongingness, now that's really complex because now we don't have boxes, right? What does it mean to belong? It's not about being in a box. It's about me as a human being with whomever I am, being belonging into the situation. And one very, very powerful tool that we have today to measure this inclusion and belongingness from going a little bit deeper and looking at from different perspectives is, for example, and I'll share my screen now, is organizational network analysis. So some of you saw this map when I posted for this session, but this is a network of 236 employees and managers. We see blue as men and the green as women, and we measure the flow of knowledge. So who do you turn to for knowledge that you need to succeed? If you need knowledge, who do you turn to? And the size of the circle, so all the circles are people, and the size of the circle is based on the number of nominations that person got, okay? So when we look at that picture immediately, although we don't measure inclusion, we measured knowledge flows. We looked at how resources flow within the company. Now we can still use the method of looking at the groups and coloring and looking at different perspectives. And we can also look at different groups like organizational groups. But what we can also do, and going back to this theme of inclusion as a daily practice and how do we engage people, is look at that person. So we saw that person here, but then when that person gets their personal map and the personal understanding, it's very clear the role they play. So as an influencer within the network, there's no knowledge flowing from any female. So only females turn to for knowledge, but no, this person never turns to any female in the company for knowledge. Now, the most important thing is not to come to that person and say, oh my God, you are bad, bad. No, the understanding of what's in it for me. So when I have a network like this, how does it limit me? And we know that it limits my creativity. It limits my impact within the company, my ability to influence. I have a whole session in the company that I may not have access to or be able to tap into their knowledge, their experience. I can't learn from that. I can't lead from that. And I can't, so it's really about me, right? So it's not about be righteous and go be a good person and ask for knowledge, but rather you're missing out. Like you're missing out on a whole new perspective, on a whole new way of seeing things. You're limited in the way your social capital supports you. And for me, so it's the measurement and then the motivation of what's in it for me that turns the data into action. And I think that organizational network analysis is really able to tap into those untapped things that are beyond like this group and this group, but really looking at connections and flows of knowledge, of perspective, and so forth.
Beautiful. Thank you, Michal. Yeah, by the way, our chat has a life of its own. I mean, people here are just talking to each other.
That is a daily practice.
It's a daily practice, I'm telling you. There are books recommendations from one to another. They are just talking to another. I love it. It's a parallel new way of inclusiveness. Okay, so I will ask the same question and Yoto will take it. How can we measure diversity, inclusion, and belonging? How can we turn data into action from your point, Yoto?
Okay, we need the right tools for that, but I just want to say a thing about the chat being so active and about just to share with you our thoughts when we're starting to work on this meetup. And we were, first of all, just a statement of inclusion as a daily practice, and why do we focus on this and not on the strategy of inclusivity and diversity, is that a lot of organizations have the strategy already, but they do not know how to do this. And if I'm connecting to what Michal said, it's the what's in it for me that should drive the workforce. I'm not talking about the organization as a whole, and I'm not talking top bottom. I'm talking bottom up. It should be something that the what's in it for me should be so clear. And this is something that if you have the right tools, it is possible and it is feasible. And I will tell you later more about our product, but our vision is that if an organization would have a dashboard, just imagine for a second that you have a dashboard and you could see what is your empathy measurement for every part of your organization. Okay, if you're measuring empathy within the management level, and not just for the employees, but also to co-workers, and empathy between co-workers, and the levels of harassment that the organization carries, and the levels of diversity and inclusion, of course, and sexual harassment, everything that will a little bit of empathy would work better. Then if we would be able to control this and to get the data and know where we are standing as an organization or as a unit in the organization, and compare it to where we stood a month ago or in a different quarter or last year, or compare ourselves to different organizations from the same arena. And this could help us determine what our KPIs are and determine where we want to stand in the next quarter on the same topic. Okay, so this is when I'm talking about using data. It means that you got to have a tool that would help you measure where you're at, and then you know where you want to go. Okay, and then you can plan your next step. So when we're talking about the empathy journeys that we're holding, we're providing different areas that you could implement those empathy journeys and then measure yourself and know where you're standing on the empathy measure. And then you could develop and plan your steps ahead.
Okay, thank you. So we have a last question, but before that, I just want to recap something in the chat. I saw that Shayna is talking about regulation and policies and things like top to bottom.
I just found out that we were we're alumni, Shayna and I.
Sorry?
Talk about connections.
Yeah, okay.
Not in place, so.
Can I share a story about Shayna's policy? Just a small story to kind of
Sure.
It's a personal story again. In me going into the U.S., I studied. I studied at the Illinois Institute of Technology in Chicago, and it was my first semester and my first presentation in front of the group. And I stood in front of the group and I presented, and I heard from the second row laughing about my accent. You hear me now today after work in the US, but my accent in my first semester was like this. So I talked English and I heard the laughter. I understood that I can't pass beyond and I can't make a connection there. Something stopped it. Now, this program was an international focus program. The head of the program had all, like, her intent. She was a refugee from Iran. Her intention was to bring diversity and people from all over the globe. The policies were there. The intention from the top was there. But at the end of the day, at that point, it affected me speaking English to that day today. It changed the way I speak. So just that interaction really made me feel out of place and excluded. And that's after I backpacked for 2 years of my life in various places and always felt at home. So it was very odd to me to get that sense, but the policy was not enough.
Policy is definitely not enough.
No.
Yeah,
So let's have to.
She put an effort and it was important, but then all these international students coming into a place where we couldn't connect because of barriers and on the spot level, she couldn't do anything about it.
Because that's a great example, because this is an organization that had the strategy, they had the plan, they were diverse enough, but they did not know how to be inclusive. Because you need methods. You need more than good intention.
Be inclusive.
Yeah.
So the PhD, I was there after the army, after traveling. It was new to me that PhDs are so young in the US, like they're very young. And I think that it was also a term of skills. I traveled, I backpacked, I've seen the world. By the time I got to the US, my experience was so broad and I knew how to communicate across different cultures. But when I got to that point, it was about the skills. It was about the skills at the individual level, the ability to connect with someone that speaks very different than me.
Thank you, Michal. I agree. It's the individual level. It's the bottom up. I think policies makes the right, the marching order. It makes, what we expect of you. But the change of the behavior and the ability to be empathic is really to meet the people in their vulnerable place. I can say that when I facilitated in the last Pride in Israel in companies, I did panels with LGBT employees of each company. And only after, the employees that, they know each other and suddenly they talked about their personal life, either they have a gay a kid or themselves, came out. So the impact was amazing. I mean, you could feel the energy and the impact of the inclusiveness right there. So it really made a difference instead of just, lecturing about microaggression and diversity and even give examples. It was the real, the real people that they know they live with, and they talked about their own, challenges within this company in the day-to-day when they come to work, and about their feelings that they never shared. So I think, there are policies, but there are also, the real life, the real personas, the real co-workers. And I think, I really relate to this agent-based individual empathy journey. By the way, if we have, I feel that we have, in the chat, meaning in the participants, an ocean of knowledge and experts and people that have great opinions. So if you want, to not only to chat, but to, to raise a hand and really speak to us and share, vocally, you're more than welcome. I mean, really, that's the idea. So if one of you, Shayna, Robin, Jamie, all of Maxine, wants to speak up, you are welcome. We have time for that. I think this is the exact platform for that, right, Michal and Yoto and
Yes, sure.
Okay, so just ask it.
That's why this is a meetup, not a webinar.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, so until you will think about it and, have the courage to do it if you want. So we'll move to the last question. So Smadar, how can we use technology in order to drive this daily inclusion practice at scale? Use the technology in order to drive the daily inclusive practices at scale.
Yeah, so I'd like to connect it a little bit to what Michal just said and also Yoto. So most of the managers in the organizations doesn't have the time or the skill to really tune into those what we call soft skills. Actually, you know that now it's not soft skills, it's power skills, and we know that those skills are actually running the business up. Communication, interactions between people, the ability to listen to clients, to each other, to partners, to colleagues is basic for collaboration, basic for innovation, of creating new things. It's so crucial. So having a technology to help managers to realize what is the specific needs of their people, to empathize, to learn and to train themselves by that is crucial. I see scaling up by using the machine learning technology and NLP, if you know, that really can get some of the emotions out of all the interactions, the written interactions, bring it up and help managers at all levels to get better in those building up power skills is very important. So regulations is very important. It creates the structure, but in order to really scale up, we need to help the people to interact better, to be more tuned to the individuals, to the people, to the emotional aspects, in order to create this connectiveness and sense of belonging within the organization.
Thank you, Smadar. So, Michal, same question, different answer. How can we use technology in order to drive the daily inclusion practice at scale?
So, technology, again, we get a hype about technology, but if I take it from the measurement to the intervention and use technology for the personalization and scale, like that's how I would draw. So we start with the data and we use the data in a way to motivate people. And then if we can use the technology to personalize action-based, so I'll put this for a moment. For me, you start with the what's in it for me and the data-driven feedback, like we've seen before, like you see here. So what is it for me? Why should I build a network that is diverse and inclusive and has a different perspective in it? Then give both, like I relate to Smadar, of course, give the skills, and also to Yoto with empathy, give those skills. So motivate, give the skills, and then create the opportunities. Sometimes we don't, like I was at school when I talked about my school and my neighborhood. It's not that I intended to be exclusive. I didn't have those opportunities in my immediate surrounding. And as humans, we're kind of lazy. And what's not around us, if we need to make too much effort, that's another thing to understand in us, in the human animal. We don't like to put a lot of resources. So if I need to put a lot of resources to find the one that is different than me, and then to go out of my way to create a communication that is more difficult because that person is different than me, then we're putting too much effort on the individual system. So what we want to do is really use the data to motivate, to push forward, and then also provide the opportunities to connect based on that data in a personalized way. So if I can see, Hadass, you are not exposed to any knowledge from other groups within the companies, here is a networking opportunity to connect and expand your network. Now it's driving you to say, okay, this is easy for me. So I have the motivation, you give me the challenge, and it's with the technology, you make it accessible to me. Okay, I'll meet that person for an hour for coffee. Now now my resources and my need to invest decrease tremendously. And that, I think, is the power of data and technology. Putting down the unnecessary resources and making me focus on creating those connections with people that I didn't get to connect with yet.
So I want to ask you something, Michal, because I come from, I work at startups. I worked, in the past in big corporates, and then I moved to startups. And then one thing I hear a lot, especially in startup, but also, in hyper-growth businesses, they are saying, diversity and inclusion are important. We are for it. However, not for us. I mean, we are running now too fast. It will slow us down, I mean, our ability to move faster with the competitive outside, keeping, being relevant before round B, round C, we have tons of, investments to do. This will slow us down. We need, like you said, it's a lot of effort to, to be empathetic, to work on those muscles and skills, to shape them. And we don't have time now. I mean, let me get the business, be a unicorn, I don't know, do an IPO, and then come back, and we will do, we will have more space and time to be inclusive. Until then, the running fast is only with people that are like us, like a blink. When I blink to someone, because, we have the same language and the vibe, the zone, this is faster for me. What would you tell them? Because this is, I'm hearing this a lot.
Yes, first I'll tell them that research supports their notion. Cohesive teams or cohesive groups, small cohesive groups that can communicate we are faster, right? But they're also very limited. They are captured within a groupthink. They miss market opportunities that they can't even capture. They miss research opportunities. Just yesterday, I saw this piece, was amazing, that they found like this research on birds, and only a female could actually do that research because of something about, I don't remember what it was, but you needed the female perspective to hear that specific bird. And I hear it also in entrepreneurial women, that they develop different products, health products, because until there was a woman that developed that product, no men thought that someone might need something that a woman will need.
This is the challenge when you're trying to reach a broader market. And there's a great quote that is from one of the female engineers that was interviewed in one of the TV spots. And she said, how can you plan an up for the whole world if you don't have the whole world in the room planning? You cannot reach everyone if you don't have everyone's point of views. You would be left narrow-minded and one point directed. And
it's okay to develop specific products to a group, but still, and that's the second piece that I will say about your question, then I'll shut up, is that it's not only that research supports the notion of cohesive teams working faster, also learning takes time. And these are new skills to learn. So my kid at the kindergarten, remember, separate. These are skills to learn. And it's hard at the beginning, but what I believe, and that's why I send my kid to school, is that these skills are so needed at the foundation that if I won't develop them when I'm small, If I'll try to develop them when I'm thousands of employees, it will be much harder. But if I'll put it in the foundation of the DNA and have the founders and the team and the founding team have those skills and ability to solve conflicts through perspectives, to bring different, then the DNA of the company, it will scale more naturally and you'll save time later ahead. So I would tell those entrepreneurs, do you imagine you're going to close your company, or are you going to imagine you're going to be a big company? If you want to be a big company, you better invest that time now, because it's going to take you way longer way in the future.
Much more difficult, much more expensive to do later.
And, you know, and you can go, you can go with learning bites, right? You can take it small and easy, and start with that. You don't need to wait for the, you know, scaling up. It will grow itself, you know, with the time, as much as we'll give, and technology supports that, gives an ability to create small learning bites or tangible, insightful actions to manager to how to deal with that diverse environment, or how to create an area that enables everyone to grow and bring their points of view into the group.
And sometimes there are things that are not possible to, that cannot happen without technology. Okay. I was talking about the VR, enhancing empathy and our empathy journeys. What VR enables you is to walk a mile in someone else's shoes. Okay, this is a technology that allows you to not imagine how it is to be someone else, but to actually feel how the other person feels. You see the situation from their eyes and you hear it from their ears, and you actually experience the situation from their point of view. And what we're doing, Ellie, can you help me with our slide here, please? What we're doing is that the empathy journey allows you to go through several steps, and this way you can. I was talking about the training the empathy muscle. So the first part is when you experience the experience, and this is when you are going through the emotional empathy. You feel how the other person feels. And then the second part is what we're doing. It is an online workshop now with our new product. So you can actually process the situation, and you can understand and not only feel what that person is going through. Because when we're talking about empathy, there are the three parts of empathy. That there's the emotional empathy, the cognitive empathy, and then there's the part of being compassionate. And this is when you implement what you have gained. So the first part is when you're experiencing it. The second part is when you are doing the online workshop and you actually understand and process the data. And then the third part is the data analysis. And this is what I discussed before with our dashboard. This is where the data is being collected and red flags are being raised, whether or not the unit or the organization is at the place where they want to be in terms of the empathy measurements. Okay, so if we are, for example, one of the empathy journeys that we just produced for the academic arena deals with Ahmed. He's an Arab student, and he's a student at the campus. And if I'm going through his journey, I'm doing his empathy journey, I would see the situation from Ahmed's eyes, and I would hear people addressing him, and I would experience the situation in a way that I would not be able to experience otherwise, because I cannot imagine it. And it's totally different when you feel it and you have experienced being walking a mile in his shoes. And this is something that allows you to empathize with him and puts the subject on the table. We're discussing earlier how we want to put the subject on the table and find ways to deal with it. So this is one of the ways that we can address it. And once you have gone through an empathy journey, and Elik, we can put the slide away. I think we've all seen it enough now. Thank you. So once we've experienced Ahmed's experience, there are two things that we have gained. First of all, the end user has processed the information and is now more willing to change what they think, or at least listen to other opinions, and they're more open-minded to the situation. And then the other part of it is the actual organization that knows where they stand on that issue. And I gave you the example of Ahmed, but we have several empathy journeys, and we're dealing with discriminating while having job interviews, sexual harassment. The whole subject of diversity and inclusion is addressed. So just every situation that is not possible for you to imagine, if you experience it, you have a totally different point of view. And this is where you could use the technology, because this is something that only the VR allows you to do. Okay, so we have to find the ways of leveraging the technologies that we have and try to implement it into our daily usage at the workplace. Because, for example, VR is being used for several usage, and none of them is in the workplace. It is popular with gaming and with leisure time, but the most important feature of it, letting you feel how someone else feels, is something that is only now we can do it when we're doing we're using it as a leverage for the workplace. And our intention is we're talking about where people are at and what's in it for me. And what's in it for me, not just as a person, but also as a business, is taking care of the belonging issues, taking care of the well-being of the workforce within the workplace, and making sure that the time that we spend at the place that we spend most of our time at is well spent, and that's a safe and inclusive and diverse and a well and most of all safe environment for us. No matter who we are, no matter where we came from, no matter what language we speak or what religious we practice or what our preferences regarding any topic in the world.
Thank you, Yetta. So, Smadar, we are very anxious to hear your solutions to the technology, using technology to drive the daily inclusion.
Yeah. So for us, I'm totally with Yotto about creating the sense of belonging in the organization and enable people to feel as part as possible. And I think the key, as far as we see, the key is by helping managers and leaders to be more work personalized and on their management skills. So being creating a personalized management tool can help managers to know how to do those actions that we all feel very, very safe and very comfortable doing, because for us it's so obvious, but not for most of the managers in the organizations. And that's the gap. And I read one of the comments at the chat about, I think Alon said that there is a gap between what is in real life. So providing the managers with actionable insights and learning kits that they actually tell them what they should do in order to work with each and every one of their employees in a way, in a manners that really suit a specific person, his needs, his specific motivations, his specific strengths, his specific needs, will create a better way of including everyone. Because instead of putting people into boxes or definitions, the personalization enables managers and employees to communicate on more personal way and make this environment more inclusive and more reliable to what they need. So that's us.
Thank you. So we have really great questions and remarks, by the way, that, in terms of takeaways, we can summarize a few of them. Like I see someone is saying that the actual movement between the general and the individual, the general and the private, is the inclusion. The result is the inclusion in the organization. People are asking about, resources. If we have organizations that don't have the capacity and the dollars, to put on a chief diversity manager, what will they do? So what activities can be done with a small amount of money? What activities can be done in this agent-based, model, and not only KPIs on the individual level? So those are things that I saw. So thank you all for joining. I can say that my main takeaway is that we really need to keep putting this topic on the table all the time, because it evolves. It's not something that is, just that. It really evolves. And at the end of the day, really, inclusion it's a personal choice. It's really a choice. It's a muscle, it's a skill, but it's also a choice. And I hope that our choices will be just a little bit, different from tonight. And every one of our panelists and participants, as I said, they are really, all of you are experts, ocean of knowledge, a network. And we could see in the chat that everyone have a great opinion and experience. So we really hope you found this, session helpful, informative. We invite you, and you can connect directly. Starlinks is Michal, Connection is Smadar, Other Reality is Yoto. So you have it here, and you will get it also in the mail, probably. And thank you so much for being with us.